Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Monday, February 1st, West Fargo City Commission meeting. I'd ask that you all stand and please join me in a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next order of business is to approve the order of the agenda. Commissioners, do you have any additions, corrections?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item C is the approval of the minutes of January 15th. We have minutes presented to us this evening of the January 15th, January 18th, and the January 25th. I would like to do them individually. So the minutes have been distributed to you. They are in your packets. It's page 3 for January 15th, and we'll act on that one first, please.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes of January 15th.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner George. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 15th as distributed. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item D is the approval of the minutes of January 18th, pages 4 through 7.
Make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 18th as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item E is the approval of the minutes of January 25th, page 8 in your packet, and they have been distributed.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of January 25th as distributed. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item F is the building permits report. It has been distributed to you. It is in your packet. Is there any questions, comments, additions?
I'll make a motion to approve the building permits.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next order of business is the consent agenda. We have items A through H. They are in your packet and they have been distributed. Are there any additions or corrections on the consent agenda?
Make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as distributed and presented for tonight's meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda. First order of business is item number 1. It's a public hearing, partial vacation of 3rd Avenue Northwest for the Curry Industries Edition. And that's going to be moved forward. Is that correct, Tim? Or it says, on my notes, it says continue to January 16th.
That'll be my request,
Okay.
Your Honor.
Please.
Thank you, Your Honor, Commissioners. Tonight, we have a public hearing scheduled. It was already scheduled in the paper. So I would ask the City Commission, open that public hearing and continue that to our February 16th, 2021 meeting at 5:30 p.m. There are some easement issues that we want to take care of that we'll rather get those taken care of before we present that to the board.
Very good. Any questions? Mr. Solberg? Okay, we'll close the regular agenda and we'll move into a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this issue? We'd ask Mrs. Richard, is there anyone from the public that is trying to get in?
There is no one on the virtual option.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to item number 1 on the regular agenda about the partial vacation of 3rd Avenue Northwest, Prairie Industries Edition? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak about the partial vacation of 3rd Avenue Northwest for Prairie Industries? Hearing none, I close the public hearing. We go back to the regular agenda. Mr. Solberg's request is that we continue this to February 16th on that agenda as an agenda item.
I'll make the motion, move it to February 16th.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdovich seconds. Been moved and seconded to move the partial vacation of 3rd Avenue Northwest for Prairie Industries Edition to February 16th, 2021 at 5:30 PM. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Solberg.
Thank you. Your Honor.
Item number 2 is a public hearing on the first reading of the Steffes 9th edition rezoning. Mr. Solberg.
Thank you again, Your Honor and City Commissioners. We received this application to provide for future expansion of Agassiz Seed. The application initially pursued a zoning district change that would have provided for an expansion as a permitted use to light industrial. However, there's considerable concern from adjacent neighbors due to potential unknowns of that light industrial zoning district. After a public hearing at Planning Commission and 2 neighborhood meetings, the applicant changed their application to a planned unit development. This will provide increased restrictions and clarity to avoid heavier commercial and industrial uses and to provide some increased design standards to increase compatibility of the residential properties to the east. In addition, the applicant has restricted access into the lot on the 6th Street side adjacent to the residential homes to avoid conflicts between the heavier commercial traffic and the existing residential traffic. You can see in the picture here, this would have been a potential access point into here for any light industrial plat. They're restricting access in this new plat to provide expansion here just to the south of that main building. Access will still remain for these properties through this area at 6, but they won't extend past those townhomes. Upon the changes which came as a result of the applicant working with the neighbors, the neighborhood, the Planning Commission reviewed the application for a second time at the January 12th, 2021 meeting. They're hereby forwarding recommendation for approval with the conditions as listed in the staff report. This evening, a public hearing is scheduled and recommendation for a first reading of the zoning change. I'm not aware of anybody here tonight. However, I'd ask you to open that public hearing and take any comments from the public. The applicant is available by Zoom if there is questions, but if there are none, I'd encourage you to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solberg. Any questions for Mr. Solberg before I close the regular agenda?
I have
Please,
just a
Commissioner
couple
George.
comments on this one.
Please.
So this one was interesting to me because I read multiple letters from the residents in that area that were opposed to this. So it got me thinking about this one quite a bit. First of all, I think it's unfortunate that those townhomes are where they are. They probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, but they're there. I know the residents, they chose to purchase their homes right there, which is in a pretty industrial area, but they were there and there was a green field there. Now, if there's a green field there, obviously that could be developed, but it wasn't. So this is a situation where I feel bad for the residents. They don't want the increased traffic on 6th, and I know they said the traffic would go up 7th, but I know that's a concern. I know if I lived there, I wouldn't want this. So for me personally, I'm going to just have to take the side of the residents and just support them on this one, even though I think this is actually not a bad use of this space, but I'm going to stand up for the residents on this. That's where I'm at.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Any additional questions for Mr. Solberg? Hearing none, we'll close the regular agenda and we will move into a public hearing. The public hearing is for the first reading of the Steffes 9th edition to rezoning. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this issue?
There is no one online except for the applicant.
Okay.
Available to speak.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this issue?
Mr. Chairman, this is Nate. I wouldn't mind speaking to it quickly.
Can't tell who it is.
That is Nate Molmuth, the applicant who's on Zoom.
Go ahead, Nate.
Can you everyone hear me okay?
Yes, speak loudly like you are right now and it'll be fine.
Okay. Well, thank you, commissioners. And I just wanted to, thank the Planning Commission. We went back and forth. We had a lot of great conversations with the neighbors. We continued it at one meeting and had 2 meetings on site to meet with the neighbors of the development. I believe we had half a dozen neighbors that came out. We talked through, we established, some new PUD guidelines from the comments that we had with the neighborhood. At the last planning commission, they did allow, even though it wasn't a public hearing, they did allow the public the ability to speak, and none of the neighbors came back out to speak about it. So I feel like we found a great middle ground for the buyer and the seller of this property, and for the neighborhood as a whole. We all kind of knew that you're not gonna please everyone, but I think from what we heard at the first planning commission meeting to where we are today, I think we got a lot of answers, a lot of things tied together, and I think the neighborhood feels that we made great strides in helping them protect what they have for their residential homes there. So I just wanted to bring that up just because Commissioner, and I'm sorry, I don't know everyone's names.
Commissioner George made comments.
Yes, that, and I appreciate her comments, and I understand that, but I did want to bring it up that I think we did find some great resolution with the neighborhood, and I just want that point to be made.
Thank you, Nate. Commissioners, any questions for the gentleman?
I would have one
Commissioner Jurdevig.
question for Tim. It seems like most of the letters and emails that were written prior to the meeting that happened between Agassi and the developer and the neighbors, and kind of their change around landscaping and the PUD and so forth. Is that correct?
Yes.
So there haven't been any emails or letters that have come in since then objecting to kind of the newer concept?
No, and I was just kind of going over that again. There were no comments at the second planning commission meeting, and no follow-up past that meeting about the changes. So neither opposed or.
Because it seems to me like they've played an active role in trying to meet with them and to address.
Yeah, 2 meetings, two neighborhood meetings.
All right.
George?
I kind of same lens as Commissioner Jurdevig was wondering then, because there were so many letters opposed to it. And do we know if any of those people specifically have changed their opinions on this?
And we did mail out the packet to these folks after this meeting occurred, before the January meeting that the Planning Commission approved it. And like I said, no letters or emails back on opposition or in favor of. And I guess I'd take that as they're not opposed anymore, but we still want to provide you guys all the.
Okay, because if the residents are now okay with what they've come up with, that changes things for me.
Yeah, and I apologize, I can't confirm or deny that.
I wonder if Nate on the phone would be able to.
I can't confirm or deny that either. I guess I would take the stance, because I've been through, neighborhood issues on other developments, and once you've had the meeting and then you've come back and have another kind of open forum, and it's usually if there's a lot of contention, those neighbors make sure that they come to that forum to still voice their concerns, even though You know what I mean? So in this case, we've had essentially, this is the second open forum plus the one at Planning Commission, the second round, and no one came forward again, and they were definitely made aware of it. So I feel that we have found a great middle ground for the neighborhood and for the buyer and seller of the property.
Mr. President.
The first meeting was virtual, as I recall.
All of the meetings we've held have been virtual.
Yes.
And you'll note in the packet, I did provide the last memo that we did send, even though there wasn't a public hearing, we gave them an opportunity to see the detailed development plans and sent that out to everybody.
To Commissioner George's point, I participated in both of those and was very impressed with the dialogue that went on and the developer Agassi Seed to try and comply and be supportive of this neighborhood. So this is the way the system is supposed to work, and I think it served very well to that public. But I was in and participated in both of the planning and zoning meetings, and I came away impressed with the dialogue that took place. So the neighborhood has certainly been given the opportunity to engage in this without a doubt.
This is just first reading anyway, correct?
Yes, sir.
We'll still have another reading on this, so.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Wait till it comes back, then I'll make a.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak to this issue? And this issue again is the first reading of the Steppas 9th edition rezoning, better known as Agassi Seed in the file. All right, we're going to close the public hearing at this time. And we'll come back to the regular agenda. And commissioners, your thoughts?
I would say this is since this is the first reading, I'd make a motion, put it on second reading. However, with the caveat that Mr. Vermolth, is that his name? Comes here, there's plenty of room. I couldn't hear a lot of what he was saying. I was uncomfortable with that, so I'd prefer him to come.
It's a great request. Nate, did you hear that?
I disabled his talk.
Okay, all right, very good, that's fine. If you'll reach out to him, Tim, and try and get him here for the second reading, please.
And
I have a
also-
motion, is there a second?
Also with the conditions.
Second.
Commissioner Jurdovic seconds, been moved and seconded to move it on, the first reading onto the second reading for the Steppas 9th edition with the 7 recommendations that Planning and Zoning has shared with us. Any further discussion? Commissioner Olson.
So when the engagements that you had with the public and the developer, after it was explained how they would change, how they would develop it into more of like a demonstration plots for their grass seed, the residents were pretty much okay with that, along with that, the tree berm that they're gonna plant and all
No, they're actually planning to build a building here someday.
that someday.
Yeah, primarily it was moving from straight zoning of light industrial, which offered up a bevy of different permitted uses, to going to a PUD that limited those uses.
Okay.
So it really wasn't a limitation to they're just going to do grass plots there. They're going to build someday there. And it was more so knowing what's coming than it was what it was previously. And that's really the credit to the Planning Commission and the process that we got to that point. PUDs aren't something I typically really like to do, but in unique situations like this, where you have a lot that's adjacent to single family that probably will never develop for single family or multifamily, it was a good process.
The public's concern was the access was a
another
big deal
one.
to them. The fact that they didn't realize that Agassi was not treating seed there, which is very harsh chemicals
Yep.
and that type of thing. There's no overhead doors that are going to face the condominiums. That's just going to be a safety door or fire door, I guess, to getting their employees out should there be an issue. So
Thank you.
okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? And that is to move to the second reading at our next commission meeting for the Steppas 9th edition rezoning. Hearing no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Solberg. Item 3 on the regular agenda is to accept a petition for improvements and authorize preliminary engineering. Mr. Scott, West Fargo City Engineer.
Thank you and good evening, Commission President Dardis and members of the commission. And good evening, members attending virtually. Let's scroll down here to our oh, thanks, Emily. That would have taken a while. No, that's not good. And no kidding, there were a lot of comments and letters there. Holy smokes. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so before you tonight is a petition for improvements from a developer known as Westport Investments LLC. They are requesting improvements to service a portion of the proposed Wilds 21st edition, which is currently a pending plat on the south side of 52nd Avenue. They submitted 3 different petitions outlining specific areas to service and a preliminary title opinion, all which are included in your agenda packet. If approved tonight, staff will evaluate the infrastructure needs and determine preliminary scope for improvements, including options for phasing and any other considerations. The improvements would be administered in accordance with city policy, as well as applicable local, state, and federal laws and regulations. And the project funding is proposed to be with special assessments, as is typical with our developments. And I attached for reference a location map here. The South Wilds, on the south side of 52nd here, for the most part has been platted except for the southwest quadrant, as you can see in the map here. It is comprised of a couple different unplatted parcels that the developer owns and is currently proposing as part of a Wilds 21st edition plat. Also included in your packet is just a reminder that we have a process for our contracts and improvements. This would be the start of a project if approved tonight. Following that is the 3 individual petitions submitted by the developer along with their preliminary title opinion. And with that, I would conclude and be open for any questions. I'll go back up to the map here.
Are there any questions of Mr. Scott?
So this is going to be located in the unplatted area in that southwest quadrant there.
Yes, yep. The Wilds 21st edition is platting the remaining property owned by the developer. There's a large parcel here that you see, as well as a parcel along 9th Street. It will also include replatting the Wilds 10th edition, which is basically just a right-of-way that they platted to ensure that we have the ability to control that and have that access there. So access down through the Horace property. There are currently rights of way in Horace. One is on basically following our 9th Street down to 64th here. The other one is this location, which would be considered, I imagine, 11th Street. So yes, they're proposing to plat all of Wilds 20 or all of this land with the Wilds 21st edition. The petition for the improvements are focused in 2 different areas further to the north. So if I'm showing it on the map here, if you can see the cursor scrolling here, it's going to be on the west side, somewhat along the diversion, and then a small portion here along 9th Street are the properties that they're wanting services extended to. But again, we need to evaluate what is in the best interest of our infrastructure, what's going to be the most efficient. They've submitted 3 different petitions, but we may proceed with one improvement district and coordinate with the developer the appropriate timing and phasing. But generally, we don't allow them to dictate what goes in where and when. we will evaluate those needs and come back before the
And
commission.
all the assessments would be to these undeveloped lots?
That's what we have to still determine. So at this junction, we're not requesting to create an improvement district. We're merely accepting
I see.
a petition for these improvements. I would anticipate that the assessments will not extend beyond the Wilds neighborhood, meaning all of these properties that you see south of 52nd Avenue. But I don't know if it's going to include everybody south of 52nd or just a small 2 or 3 block radius, or if it's a half a section. We haven't determined that yet because we don't even know the scope of work yet.
Additional questions for Mr. Scott? Commissioner Simmons?
Thank you, Mayor. So, yeah, because you're really confusing me now on this because we're like way into the weeds, in my opinion. This is the beginning of the new so-called protocol, I guess, is where we're going with all this. It's like, how can, normally I would say at this point, there are no homes there, and so all the assessments, in my opinion, would go, or obviously to me, would go to the land where there's no homes. So it doesn't bother me. But we're so at the very beginning of this, that there could be homes that could be assessed then, is kind of what you just said. And that does concern me. I mean, and I know we have no way of knowing that at this point. So if we approve this tonight and we see that all of a sudden some homes are getting assessed that are already there, then can we stop it at that point?
Absolutely. Great question, Mr. Simmons. So the next step will be to come before the commission and request an improvement district be created. When we understand the appropriate scope of work, whether that's extending water, sewer, and streets into one block or into multiple blocks, whether or not we need to extend 9th Street, which is a collector roadway, which now is a larger assessment district that would be created. We need to determine that. The last phase here was to the southeast of this map. This area here, the Wilds 20th edition, if you recall, this was last year. We went through the same process. We brought the petition forward. We asked the commission to consider it because accepting the petition and directing staff to get started, you're designating our time and resources now. You're also, basically approving that work gets started. It's added to the capital improvement plan. We're going to start working on this. But that's where it stops. That's really all we're asking for tonight is whether or not to move forward. If the commission were to say, you know what, we've got a number of other priorities right now. We're not interested in future development or further development in this area. We would put the petitions on a shelf and put it on hold, and I won't expend any time or resources moving this forward. If it's approved tonight, we will engage the developer and get staff working on this to determine, again, what are the improvements needed and what size of a district would correspond with those improvements.
There's no question in my mind, Justin, that we have to continue this because every project is going to be like this. And if we just want to stop all construction in West Fargo, then I guess we deny it. My point being is I can tell you right now what's going to come out of this because we are so far in the weeds, guys. It's going to come out that we're assessing people.
Yes, sir.
And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate we got to this place, I guess, time and day and the year we're in where we have to have you come before us and do all this. And again, it's unfortunate for our staff that they have to go through this, but I just want to, somehow we have to make it clear that we're not a special assessing anybody here tonight, that there are no, this is just, like you said, the beginning stage.
Absolutely.
In this process, this preliminary process that you're referring to, Mr. Scott, will public safety be consulted on this too? With regard to, I've been into this neighborhood a number of times, back when we did the Wilds 20th, drove it with the developer, have driven it with Horace officials as well, because there was always a discussion about 9th Street being potentially extended, that for public safety reasons, another way out, if you will. That's a pretty dense neighborhood and concerns there. So I would hope that we continue to have emergency services as part of the dialogue, because I am very concerned about that. that dead end down there. And for the density of homes that is existing as well as what's forthcoming. So,
Absolutely. I certainly share those same concerns, Mr. President.
thank you.
I have-
Commissioner Olson.
So Dustin, could you scroll to page 75 of the packet? Okay, you've got an area that's outlined in darker ink there. And so that's what we're looking at right now, is looking at that would be platted, and then you go scroll a couple more pages down to page 78, and there's another one like that. I'm assuming the one that was on page 45 or 75 was up in the upper left-hand corner of page 78, you know?
That's correct, Commissioner Olson. Yes. So
So then what I'm trying to get at is that point, that just to the south of that area you've got right there on where your cursor's at, that's not even, we're not even considering that at this point. Or the developer's not, because that's going to be another coming to us, be like the 22nd or something.
great point, Commissioner Olson. Yes, that for right now, what the developer is showing on these maps, which by the way, again, this is a preliminary plat. So
Right.
this plat isn't many more than the piece of paper it is. But when they submitted their petition, they're requesting this area defined by this black line that they colored in
Okay.
and said they want services for these properties as well as services for the properties that are, now this would be, so here's the other area that they requested.
Yep.
So this is a little bit southeast.
Yep.
And so they're basically asking the city to consider infrastructure to service those lots so that they could start building those at the end of the year. I anticipate that at some point they would be requesting services for all of it, but it gets to be a matter of, for them, they understand, again, special assessments will be encumbered on the rest of the properties that they own. And so they only want to put in as much infrastructure as they think they can build and put up those dwellings. But we don't just blindly accept what they want. We're going to evaluate what infrastructure is needed. And if we need to get a sewer line past this particular black boundary, we're going to do that. If we need to get a safe crossing for pedestrians beyond this black boundary, we're going to do that. And if that means we need to have either a larger special assessment district or fund it with some other mechanism, we will do that. And that's where we haven't started that process yet, because it will take time, energy, and resources, and most likely a contract with our engineering consultant to do that.
So this is basically how they would like to have it done, but it may not end up that way.
Absolutely.
So then if you go to 81 and 82, what are those hash marked lines, those thin lines right there? What is that accomplishing there?
So anytime we start developing along the diversion, we run into the need to coordinate a permit with the Corps of Engineers. And so part of their request is to begin that coordination along the entire length of the diversion. So if I go back to the overall area map here, I zoom in. So if they're only requesting, say, this first couple blocks up in this corner and a block or two over along this area, they've titled it phase 3, but they're basically asking the city to begin the efforts to coordinate any permitting needs along the diversion, although they might wait 2, 3, 4 years before they request infrastructure down to this most southern portion. They want to get started on those permit efforts today, which I would certainly understand and agree with. The sooner you can begin coordinating with the Corps of Engineers,
Right.
that would certainly be a prudent thing to do.
Okay, well, thank you. Hopefully we don't run into anything like we did up in Brooks Harbor where we had that wetland that we had to do some different work there.
Absolutely. We actually had another one in the Wilds 11th edition in the northwest corner of this site. There was a wetland delineation issue here. So yes, that's lesson has been learned. It slowed development down for that particular year, and that's what they want to try to avoid.
Additional questions for Mr. Scott? Commissioners?
Make a
What's your
motion to
pleasure?
Approve.
Thank you, Commissioner. Simmons, is there a second, please?
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Olson. Been moved and seconded to accept the petition for improvements and authorize preliminary engineering for the Wilds 21st edition. Is that a correct nomenclature, Mr. Scott, 21st
correct.
edition? Okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Item number 4 is the Northwest Metro Transportation Plan. Mr. Adam Altenberg, MetroCog.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner President and Commissioners, for your time here tonight. Am I able to share my screen?
Yes, you are. I would like the adjustments.
Okay. Waiting just a second for that. Thank you for your patience. Are you able to see that?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty, thank you. My name is Adam Altenberg with the Metropolitan Council of Governments, and the Northwest Metro Transportation Plan is a study completed in partnership with West Fargo and Fargo, with additional guidance from Cass County, Riley's Acres, and Reed Township, and other stakeholders. And at its core is intended to be a guidebook to get ahead of some of the growth pressures we're just beginning to see in this area. As of today, much of the area is undeveloped. It's numbering under 3,000 residents and less than 4,000 total jobs, most of which are concentrated in areas currently incorporated by the cities of West Fargo and Fargo. So there were 3 steps that were part of the technical process for this project. The first was developing and refining land use or land intensity assumptions to understand what types of development might occur in the sub-area in the near and long term. Next, we analyzed what transportation improvements would be needed to accommodate this land use. And then finally, we discussed and analyzed a couple of different transportation scenarios, mostly so that our different study partners could be in agreement about what improvements to start planning for. So starting with the land intensity concepts. This is the proposed land use plan our team developed with blue for industrial, red for commercial, yellow and orange, brown representing different intensities of residential or mixed residential and commercial developments. And here we've highlighted a couple of key locations within the sub area. First, in the northeast, we have a lot of short-term industrial growth expected along 40th Avenue North, which puts focus on short-term needs along this corridor. Moving to the southwest, we have the existing BNSF rail line that bisects the sub area at an angle. And for this area, our team looked at integrating a diagonal road that complements the existing rail line and also accommodates potential industrial land use. This also helps keep traffic off of 45th Street up near Riley's Acres so that future traffic impacts are kept to a minimum near that city. Transitioning again here, we start to see some higher land use intensities. These are areas identified in West Fargo's comprehensive plan as future growth nodes as the city builds out and as the current lagoons are decommissioned in the future. And then finally, looking at the Raymond interchange at 38th Street, good access and connectivity to some dense commercial land use. So we also wanted to convert these different land use intensities into usable growth scenarios in terms of population and employment. And approaching this with the understanding that the challenges that come from special assessments and land consumption rates, our team decided to look at some of the denser neighborhoods in and around the metro area so that we have complementary land uses that come back out through the transportation process. So this is just one example highlighted here of what we identified as low intensity, using real examples from both West Fargo and Fargo that our study team envisioned for the future of the sub-area. And I'll note here that our projected full build comes out to 57 new residents and 90,000 new jobs, but this is 50 years plus into the future. So next, we have the transportation system assessment, which I'll touch on briefly. With the land use plan we developed, we translated what that would mean in terms of traffic over the next few decades. So you can see some of these purple, red, and orange roadways signifying some pretty high traffic numbers, actually higher than what you would find in the metro area currently. Again, this isn't going to happen overnight. Probably looking at a 50+ year time frame. Traffic operations model here starts to help us refine how many lanes of capacity we need and what kinds of traffic control methods would be good to use. What we found here is that we could keep most of the north-south corridors to 2 or 4 lanes. And by doing that, we're better able to implement potential roundabouts, which allow for better traffic operations and safer travel conditions. And finally, our roadway infrastructure model looked at what this will all cost and what the overall investment for roads and utilities will end up being. And this graphic here shows that it would take nearly $375 million to build out the roadway system for this entire subway area. Again, this is at full build, decades down the road, and likely only a fraction of that investment will be needed in the next 5, 10, or even 20 years. We also wanted to ensure that the study thought about multimodal needs, including pedestrians, bicyclists, transit, as a way to move through this area. So this study provides examples of roadway types that correlate with those expected traffic volumes that can best accommodate some of these multimodal users. Last phase I'll talk about briefly is a scenario analysis. So the first scenario we looked at is what we've called the Southwest Gateway, and we wanted to look at ways that would allow better connectivity to some of the higher intensity land uses in this area. This is near the Raymond interchange. And what we began to do is look at how Main Avenue and the I-94 interchange could be actually reconfigured and then potentially utilizing one or several viaducts over the rail line and the Sheyenne diversion in that area. And so this concept can be better visualized here with this image, and it would require major investment, and there would be some impacts to some of the existing land use. But what we found is that when we modeled this in the traffic model, we saw that this would be incredibly beneficial to the overall sub area and has some really good cost benefits in terms of travel time and miles traveled that our team agreed it makes sense to at least take steps to plan and look at maybe preserving right away for a concept like this. The next scenario we looked at is a modal split and how people get from one place to another. Historically, majority of people in the FM area drive to and from work, and that's what our traffic forecasting has really focused on. However, when we compare the entire metro area with an area like downtown Fargo, there really are major discrepancies in that mode split. So with some of the higher intensities that we anticipate for this area, we can start to expect more people using alternative modes of travel. And Also, noting that with the impacts of COVID-19 in the back of our minds during this study, we modeled this scenario with a 13% reduction in the amount of vehicular traffic. And we found that by doing this, we're able to reduce 8 miles of overall traffic capacity, which really goes a long way in forcing the comfort levels of people walking and biking, as well as providing cost, health, and livability benefits. And this last scenario that we looked at here is 40th Avenue and County Road 20. And we took a deeper look at this corridor because we expect a lot of short-term growth in this area, which it makes it likely that we're on the cusp of a variety of different capacity and traffic control needs. So we delved a little deeper along this corridor and found that right around 2040, 2045, it's expected that additional roadway capacity will be needed, going from what's currently a 2-lane roadway facility to a 4-lane roadway. However, before that time, there will be a need to add better traffic controls at key intersections, especially near the interchange at I-29. And what the study concluded is that roundabouts would function well and operate much better in terms of traffic efficiency while providing better safety as well. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this study really at its heart is meant to be a guidebook for future planning studies as this area begins to urbanize. In that time, though, we note that it will be important for the different units of government to keep the lines of communication open and to continue monitoring and managing growth, as well as protecting key infrastructure and right-of-way needs. The study also recommends refining some of the major concepts identified to better understand the overall cost implications, especially when it comes time to allocating funds for these improvements. So that is all I have for this presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Mr. Altenberg, Commissioner Olson has a question for you.
Adam, could you put your screen back up there, please, if possible?
Yes.
I'd like you to go back to slide number 12, if you can. Yeah,
Yes.
over there in the right-hand column there, I just want to point this out to the commissioners. If it's planned out right, and we could have 56,000 people living in there, that'd be like moving the city of Grand Forks to that location. And 90,000 jobs. We have the potential for that. Most of it would be in our jurisdiction there. So Tim would have lots of fun with planning that out, wouldn't you?
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Mr. Altenberg, would you also pull up your screen when it had the bar graph, the vertical bar graph?
Mr. President, if I could make a comment
I'm sorry, Mr. Sober.
on that. This is one of the few planning studies where we don't limit our growth horizon. A lot of times our growth horizon is limited to the 20, 25 years we put in our demographic forecast. So we really limited to that. And even our land use planning on this was a scenario based. We looked at what's the best case scenario on this. And so that's why, so the potential is there, but that means, a lot of people are coming to our community and a lot of people are
Right.
natural.
We're talking decades out. We're talking 50, 60 years from now. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. I apologize. What slide did you?
It's a vertical bar graph. Back for
This one, the modal split?
that one right there. So when was this plan finished? When was it completed?
We finished up a draft of this plan back in November.
November. So during COVID. On the right-hand side of this where it says work from home, I continue to have the public talk about the scenarios, and of course, a very large employer in our community is putting their building on hold because they've found great efficiencies from the employees working at home, and they're not going to build a big addition. And so I was surprised that the percentages seemed very low from the work from home.
You're correct.
Considering what we just been through and what you're hearing on the street.
I apologize. I missed the last part of your comment there.
It's just from what you hear on the street about how businesses are operating virtually. The work from home percentage number seems very low to me, extremely low.
You're looking at these numbers. These are looking at 2010 and 2018 numbers, and yes, if we actually had incorporated some of the numbers that we have from 2020, I'm sure some of these numbers would be a lot higher. But this does go back to the thought of we were thinking about the impacts of COVID when we were in the middle of the study, and that did go into the mode split model with that 13% reduction in the amount of vehicular traffic that would be in this area.
Thank you. Additional questions for Mr. Altenberg? Mr. Solberg?
Mr. President, if I could,
please.
ask the commission to approve the plan. We'll use this as sort of a guidebook. As I said, it will not dictate how we make land use decisions. It's simply a guidebook for helping us make sure that we don't make any big mistakes on section line arterial roadways.
It is an actionable item. So commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? We are discussing item number 4, which is the Northwest Metro Transportation Plan as presented by MetroCog. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 5. Thank you, Mr. Altenberg. Item number 5 is the approval of the annual report for Public Works MS4 Stormwater Program. Mr. Chad Zander, Program Coordinator.
President Dardis, Chad Zander is not here this evening, and neither is Matt Anvig. They weren't available. This item is generally something that will go on the consent agenda, but we put it on the regular agenda just basically in error. I didn't catch it, but it's basically was for your review, and then just if you're okay with the report, then to make an approval.
Are there any questions on what was in your packet with regard to the stormwater report?
If not, I would make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jurdevig and a second by Commissioner Simmons to approve the annual report for Public Works MS4 Stormwater Program. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item number 6 is a review of the Fire Department's 2020 annual report. Mr. Dan Fuller, Fire Chief. Good evening, Dan.
Good evening, Commissioner President Dardis, members of the commission. Before you is the annual report. This is not an actionable item, just an informational thing we do every year. It gives me great pleasure to submit this report to you. It's an understatement that this year has been definitely one for the record books. The dedication of our small band of firefighters and emergency medical clinicians was put on display this year, fighting the local lines of a deadly pandemic where over, as of tonight, 440,000 Americans have lost their lives. The last time a pandemic of this magnitude visited our shores was 20 years before the founding of the fire department in 1920. The pandemic required extensive retooling of our department and the way we operate, the way we train, and the way we lead, all to keep serving the community and keep our responders safe. I am pleased to say that our culture of continuous improvement allowed us to move fluidly where the evolving scientific understanding of this virus pushed us. Hand in hand with our city growth, the department has experienced higher and higher call volumes each year. In 2020, the department responded to 2,187 calls for service. This number represents a smaller than anticipated percentage of call increases. However, it does not adequately represent our overall call volume, growth, and direction. Emergency medical calls were down 20% during the spring lockdown months and then rebounded to some of the busiest months that we have ever seen. Fire and rescue calls for the first time ever surpassed 1,000 combined annual calls for service. Throughout the year, we saw 8 months that had higher call volumes than the 2019 average of 177 per month. 3 of those 8 months had call volumes over 200 calls for service. Part-time and off-duty firefighters were called back to service 144 times during the year, and additionally ran 55 calls for service while the on-duty crew was already engaged in another emergency scene. These trends illustrate the future, a very busy fire department working tirelessly to meet the needs of the community. I'm very appreciative of your support and all of the commission's support in expanding our fire department to meet these critical challenges. The new fire headquarters building will greatly expand our capacity to handle multiple emergency calls in different sections of the city while reducing our response times and improving outcomes for both fire and medical emergencies in the northeastern part of the city. In closing, I'd like to thank the men and women of the West Fargo Fire Department for making our 80th year of existence also our most defining year. This report chronicles their accomplishments in the face of a national pandemic, in light of staffing changes, and in spite of an ever-increasing operations tempo. I am very much looking forward to what this department will be able to accomplish in the years to come. With that, I'll stand for any questions. I know I didn't go through the entire report. There was a lot of technical data in there. So I do have the report on the thumb drive if you want me to bring up anything to look at for people in the.
Thank you, Chief Fuller. Commissioners? Commissioner George.
I just have a quick question. Can you go back to, did you say medical calls this year versus last year?
Yep. Medical calls this year versus last year.
I guess 2020 versus 2019.
There we go. Yep. So we had, wow, let's see, 1145 for 2020 and 1255 for 2019.
Thank you.
We had a huge dip in the spring and then right back up over the highest numbers by the end of the year.
Additional questions for the chief?
More of a comment. I would like to see
Please.
Mika come to a meeting sometime.
You would. She's a handful. Yep. She's really looking for food.
I'll bring treats.
Could I ask, how many times have Mika been called out?
She was called out 5 times in December, and I think she's been out 9 times this month already. Or I'm sorry, we're already in February. So 9 times in January.
And what's her actual title? Fire?
Arson accelerant detection, K9.
Arson accelerant.
Yep.
And would you share with the public, please, how that was funded?
Yep. So we were able to get the K9 and the training for the handler through a grant from State Farm Insurance. The reason they do that is to try to reduce the overall amount of insurance fraud in our communities. However, it does help us because we have other issues with arson in the community, and it will help us investigate, and hopefully she'll have a good conviction record once we get to that point.
And she's the only arson accelerant trained dog in the state of North Dakota, is that correct?
She's the second.
Second.
Mandan City Fire Department has one also.
Okay. All right. Additional, Commissioner Olson.
On the full packet, on page 110, you list a lot of years of service awards, and you're one of them, sir, with 5 years of service.
I am just 5 years here at this fire department. Yep.
And then there's some other, you have life savings awards, Stork awards and all that, so.
Yep. We do have a list of awards we hand out annually for deeds that go, definitely are within the scope of what we expect our firefighters to do, but they're sometimes seem so rare that we don't see them a lot. So we do have a Valor Award that we'll be awarding this year. We had a fire in December where an off-duty firefighter, the on-duty battalion chief, and a police officer rescued 2 elderly occupants and their daughter with cognitive disabilities from a burning home on the West Fargo line.
Just hats off to everybody on that you listed here.
Yeah, no, the
Thanks,
chief
sir.
actually did have a honor day that you give out awards. Unfortunately, with COVID, it was difficult for a lot of people to attend, but
Yeah, every year
the mayor and me were both there, and so
we try to do it every year and have, this last year was pretty tough. We normally have a banquet and we invite all the retirees back, which is a great evening to get all of them back together and hear the stories of where we came from. But this year we had to, there was not a lot of socializing. It was pretty quick and a big open air area. So
this is the only year in the 18 years now that I have been here that we haven't had one. So it speaks volumes for the department as far as in reference to what you do for your people as well, Chief. So
thank you.
thank you.
Earlier on, you thanked the city of West Fargo and the commission for our support, and we need to extend to you with the number of calls, the pandemic, the risk that you first responders were out this year from a grateful community. Thank you for your team and all that you've done, Dan.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you very much.
All right. Anything else? Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
The next order of business is item number 7. At this time, the West Fargo City Commission is going to gavel out. We are going to go into a closed executive session. We will return when we're done with that. So at this point in time, we stand adjourned temporarily. Monday, February 1st, West Fargo City Commission is back in session.
And he's not here.
Oh. Mrs. Fisk, could we have the city administrator's report, please? Sure. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission President and Commissioners. I don't have a lot of items, but I will go through them very quickly while we wait for Commissioner George. You will be getting another notice that we will be wanting to hold another brown bag session with you the first part of February to review the 2019 audit report from Ide Bailey. Then it will be brought forward in the brown bag, discussed in detail, and then we will put it on consent agenda at the next regular commission meeting. Felt that that was more transparent than trying to rush through it during a commission meeting. So we'll just go in depth and talk through it. Jim did an amazing job, Jim Larson, our finance director, working with Ide Bailey and jumping through all the hoops that were there, and he did a fantastic job and we're in a really good spot. So I'm really proud of that. The CIP for 2022 is in the final review process and will be brought forward to the commission later in February, or early March. And so you can watch for some of that to come around. One item I do have is staff was asked by Commissioner Simmons to look into the cost because we don't have signage in the plaza. The lights on 32, we don't have signage in there like our logos. And so asked staff to look for the cost of signage at the lights on the stage and other places. And I just need to get a consensus from the commission if you would like us to proceed and bring those costs back. It's our plaza, but
I would think it's our plaza. We want to have our name on there, everywhere we can. And we've got some great spots that are open above the screen by the Midco sign. They're wide open, just waiting. They've been waiting for a long time. So,
How many signs are you thinking?
well, there's 2 there for sure, Tina, and probably Melissa, you know more than I know. How many?
There's 2 at the Midco stage that are available to fill, and then there was also discussion about looking at the parking garage and identifying additional opportunities. So I think what we would do is come back with the cost and a plan for where those signs go, but I can't give a definitive number right now.
Why didn't we, no offense to you, but why didn't we do this a long time ago? Why is
It's
the cost just coming out? You took me by surprise by asking that question, so.
Commissioner Simmons, it's been one of those things where as the lights on 32 was developing, it was just kind of, everybody was just scattered. We had so much going on and so much to do. We're busy trying to get agreements in place and work on everything. And that is just one thing that we just held off on, didn't set it on the back burner because it didn't seem like it was the most immediate need. We were busy trying to put out other issues that were happening, but it's important to get it done. And I appreciate you bringing it forward. And so if you're okay with that, we will bring back a proposal. Melissa's doing some great work with it, so
That's not a part of the TIF money, though,
no,
we can use for that, so, okay,
nope.
okay. Do you need a motion on that, or do you just want to?
I don't need a motion. No, I don't need a motion because I'm not spending any money. We'll come back with money. Okay,
At the next meeting, how long?
at the next meeting,
Okay,
so we can get going on it. Let me see, and Melissa and Lauren will provide you an update on the gift card program. It seems to be extremely successful, and they've done a fantastic job. So I'll let them talk, but before I sit down, the application process closed last Friday for the assistant administrator position. And so we're going to be working forward on setting up interviews in the next couple weeks, and Brad and Bernie both agreed to join us in the interview process. So we'll be getting all that set up, and I'll keep you all posted on what the plans are, because then we also want to do kind of like a informal meet and greet with staff and commissioners and everything at one point. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Any questions of her? You have any correspondence?
Commissioner Jarvis, the tentative date for the round date is February 10th. I know you had mentioned that you might not be around, but that's the tentative date.
I'm, at this point in time, I'm scheduled to be in Bismarck.
Good evening, Commissioners. I will give a brief update on the communications aspect of the gift card program, and let Lauren provide an update on the businesses. In terms of communications, we do have a website up and rolling at this time. It's westfargond.gov/loveyourlocal. On there is a list of businesses that have been verified as participating. We also have confirmation from the vendor that the gift cards are in production at this time, as well as the letters. And so the next step for those is to go back to the vendor for packaging and distribution out. We anticipate the gift cards being in households by March 1st. We also have business signage supplies available in our office that will begin to distribute out to the businesses that are participating, so they can identify themselves as participating businesses. We're also working with local media vendors for an advertising campaign to make sure that all of the businesses that are participating are supported.
Good evening, Commissioners. I would also like to report that as of this evening, we have had 69 businesses, West Fargo businesses, submit their information to participate in this program, which is phenomenal. We have also been able to get a hold of some of the larger grocery stores in town as well. And so we're still waiting to hear if they would like to participate. We do know that Costco has decided to not participate because they would like to support our smaller local businesses. So that is the feedback we've received. And we've also received a lot of positive feedback from our smaller businesses. So they would like to thank you for instituting this program, and we're very excited to have those gift cards roll out.
Are there any questions of Mrs. Richard or Ms. Orchard? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go back to item number 7, where the city of West Fargo went into closed executive session. So we're back on the regular agenda.
In relation to item number 7, I'd like to make a motion to continue the negotiation per the direction of the executive session.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second?
second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to continue the negotiations with the properties listed in the agenda on Cheyenne Street. Is there any further discussion?
I just was
Commissioner George?
wondering if we could make a statement on what what we mean to the public as far as, or is just the motion and that's it?
I think maybe John can explain that if he, or I'm sorry, Mayor, I apologize. That's your call.
Any commissioner can make any statement that they want to, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm happy.
And
with John.
Mr. Shockley can certainly speak to the issue as well.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President, Commissioner George. My recommendation would be just to, staff has the negotiation direction given by the city commission and just have the commission confirm that at this point. We'll go back to the property owners and see if they're receptive to the directions given, and then we'll report back to the city commission.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Does that suffice to you?
Well,
Mrs.
I guess I just,
George?
to simplify it, just saying we're not approving the current purchase agreements. We're going to continue to negotiate the purchase agreements.
That would be accurate. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of the motion. Emily, could you read the motion, or Mr. Druder, would you restate the motion, please?
Yeah, the motion is to simply continue negotiation per the direction provided during the executive session.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Passes on a 3-2 vote. Let's see, where are we at in the agenda?
Number 10.
Is there any correspondence, Mrs. Fish? No, we're good. Any non-agenda items, any of the commissioners would like to bring forward this evening? Any non-agenda item that any of our department heads or staff that's in the room would like to bring forward this evening? Is there anyone from the
President
public that
Jarvis?
would like to, excuse me, Mrs. Fisk has her hand up.
I forgot to mention during my report, we're heavy into the legislative session, and the communications director, Melissa, is tracking everything for us really good, and she's writing a lot of testimony, and Bernie's been going down to Bismarck and sending us information and doing a bang-up job helping the city of West Fargo try and get rid of some of these crazy bills. But if you see anything out there that you want staff to do some research on, or you want some testimony submitted, don't be afraid to reach out to us, because we are tracking the bills as well.
I was at the legislature all morning. This morning, went down last evening on the bonding bills. And there's some discussion, a little bit critical with some of the bonding bills discussion. There's still a number of them on the floor. One was pulled last week, but they are interesting, and caught a rumor today. So I went and talked to the guy that is talking about it, and it also pertains to the prairie dog as to how bonding or bonding monies might be applied there. So that's getting quite, that's a bit of a concern for me. So I was talking to the bill, that sponsor of that element in the bonding bill. So lots of things happening out there, as Mrs. Fisk said, and we have to keep a close eye on it. I would like to personally thank Mrs. Richard and her team on the number of items that both the League of Cities is involved in, and Stephanie Daffsinger and Mr. Blake Crosby have been monitoring these for us as well. We also have the Fargo diversion because of bonding. We have staff there and a lobbyist group that's feeding us information, as well as the Career Workforce Academy and the Chamber of Commerce. So we're all working together collaboratively. Shannon Full and I, the Chamber President and CEO, have had numerous meetings and emails. And so, again, our staff is doing an absolute bang-up job, and very proud of them. And we continue to send in, and if it pertains to a particular department, Chief Otterness is working on some very important legislation, I believe, for the public safety, and that's going well for them also. So, And whenever there's a specific area, planning and zoning, whatever, we reach out and include the department heads for their input as well. So commissioners, if you see anything that looks scary to you, we've got some of the best staff in the business, and they'll certainly address it for you. So I encourage you to engage at whatever level you're comfortable with, but know we've got a lot of great partners in Cass County. I didn't mention Cass County Commission, but they too have been instrumental in keeping us all aware and kind of tracking all this stuff. So again, is there any non-agenda items that any commissioner would like to bring forward this evening, staff or the public? Mrs. Richard, anybody out there with their hand up
There is no one with.
on virtual platform? All right, Commissioner Simmons.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. We stand adjourned.